This is Why Am I a Mets Fan? A podcast hosted by Samantha Croston and Ashley Wenskoski.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of Why Am I a Mets Fan? That's Ashley Wenskoski. I'm Samantha Croston. We may as well just address it. Clearly, we had some kind of celebration here. That's why there's still confetti. It was from a champagne bottle. We were wishing and sending off our sports director, Tommy Sladak, at our station. And because this is dropping tomorrow, I can say it. I'm taking his job. I'm moving into sports full time. And your girls are taking over the sports department at CNY Central. So we're really excited about it and excited to continue bringing you more content, which now hopefully we can do even more. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great.
Very exciting week ahead of us. So excited. Also, the colors were orange and blue. Everything worked out wonderfully. It's great.
There's just like
happy
things.
Mets, happy Syracuse.
Yes.
I don't know.
No. Things were meant to be how they are. The Mets right now are currently 64-60, 4 games over 500, 1 game back from the NL wild card behind the Padres, D-backs, and Braves, and 6 games back in the NL East. It's been a week of highs and it's been a week of lows. It's been a confusing week.
Yeah, a little bit up, down. They finally got back from the West Coast. They welcomed the A's to town. Little bit of a, I don't know if you'd say disaster series, but I don't feel good about losing 2 out of 3 to the A's, especially that last game. We'll get into it. I was there. It was a nightmare. And then they win 2 out of 3 against the Marlins, but they don't get the sweep.
Right. Let's work backwards.
Yeah.
That game today against the Marlins, let's just be honest, it was a bummer. And it was a game that they could have won, should have won, didn't win.
Yeah, listen, there's been a couple games in this last week or two that if the Mets fall a game or two short of the playoffs, you're going to be looking at these few in August. I mean,
so true.
Just with the Lindor, he hits it like 400 feet, doesn't get the walk-off, they lose the game, runner on third. Same thing with that game on Thursday night against the A's. They lost 7-6, but Alvarez comes up, almost hits it out, doesn't. It's just been a lot of like almost moments recently, and I will tell you that the almost is gonna come back to bite them. I can feel it.
Almost is not good enough.
No.
It never is. Good time to mention our tweet of the week via, I want to say it's Run Wild Cayenne. I don't know. Let us know. Her name is Diana. She's always consistently tweeting out absolute heaters. And today was no different. She said 400-foot fly out. I genuinely don't believe anyone is unluckier. I also appreciated another tweet she tweeted in game. Having our best hitter since the All-Star break bunting in the 9th is nasty work, to be honest. And I don't think I disagree, but I would love to even ask that question for the viewers in the comments. Do you think Jeff McNeil should have bunted today in the 9th inning, attempted to bunt, or not? I'd say no.
Okay, I'll get into the Jeff McNeil bunt in a minute. Diana, first of all, is just always throwing out heaters. She is the best on Mets Twitter.
So good.
She also said this pitching staff is going to deprive me of watching Lindor play in October, and I'm never going to forgive them for that. Agreed, Diana. Also has some great montages of the baby Mets always, of like Alvarez and Baty Vientos. They're literally fantastic. So, Diana, you rock. But yeah, Jeff McNeil bunting today, I mean, I think Carlos Mendoza has done a really fantastic job as manager the first few months of this season. That was not of his best moves. I mean, you're having your hottest hitter since the All-Star break, and he's going to bunt. And then when he doesn't get the bunt down the first time, you have him continue to try to bunt, and it doesn't work, and then he strikes out. Like, not a good choice.
And there were a lot of different things happening, a lot of things at play in that 9th inning. But in my mind, looking back on that game, that's the reason they lost. Yes, Vientos struck out at the end. But end of the day, if he had a successful bunt and he was able to advance the runners, we're talking about a totally different situation where when Lindor hits that fly out, it's a tie game.
Correct.
And it was obviously not that. I thought Lindor, to me, that was a good at-bat. Vientos, what are you going to do? But the McNeil bunting situation, in my mind, that's what I would have wanted to have that back. Or after it didn't work the first time, then maybe let's not commit to the bit beyond that.
Yeah, McNeil hasn't really been great at bunting throughout his career either. Exactly what you said. Once it's not great on the first pitch, go away from it. Vientos had a terrible at-bat in that game. He like whiffed on kind of a half swing. I've been a real Vientos supporter, but that was not his finest moment. But yeah, the bunting decision, very questionable. I just think forget about the stats, forget about what you're supposed to do in that situation traditionally. McNeil has been your hottest hitter since the All-Star break. Let's not ask him to bunt with what was it, 1 out in the ninth.
Let's look with your own eyes and
Right.
make a decision.
Right.
Anyway, now we can reverse. Yeah, the A's series was ugly. It was a 9-4 loss on Tuesday. It was a 9-1 win on Wednesday, and then a 7-6 loss on Thursday. A game which Ashley attended. We are 0-2 on the season, by the way.
Love that.
On going
For
to
us.
the games,
For us.
and yeah.
Our intern Dan's there a lot. I think he has better luck. He goes
Yeah.
more frequently. That was my one Mets game of the year, and it was a clunker. Things were all right. Let me tell you the story. Things were looking great to start. They're up 5-0. I was having a great time. I got my overpriced $27 cup of. They serve like the cocktails. You get to keep the cup. I was getting the cup. I don't care if it's $27.
The cup is awesome.
Oh, great. I want all of them. So
Yep.
that's, yeah. Anyways, drinking my drink. They're up 5-0. Everything's going great. Then Jose Quintana starts to have a meltdown. He lets up the grand slam. All right, it's 5-4. It was a game you really just kind of felt the entire time. You thought they were going to win. Vientos hits the 2 home runs. Like, everything's looking great. The bullpen just has a meltdown. Reed Garrett is letting in runs as usual. I can't stand Reed Garrett. He's become #1 on my hit list also. And it was an unfortunate loss. Even in the 9th inning when Alvarez came up, like, I really felt like they were going to make something happen in the 9th. Didn't. 11 walks in that game. I mean, that was my takeaway. You just can't win a game if you walk 11 batters. It was the longest, you have this on here, the longest regular season game of the pitch clock era, almost 4 hours, which I'm never going to complain about because if
Wait,
I
was going to say, you got your money's worth. You're
I
like
got my
5
money's
drinks
worth.
deep.
Literally hammered. No, but if I pay to go to a game and I make the journey to Citi Field, I'm all for a long game, so that's not a problem to me. More so just the way that it ended. And I mean, 11 walks, like that's challenging.
I can't even imagine your dad sitting through this game
No,
right
I
now.
was just gonna say he.
What was his energy?
All right, he starts counting. He starts counting. He couldn't believe it. He was like, it's been a long game. He's seen the pitchers, the bullpen, the whole ring around, and he's like, what are they at? They're at 8 walks. A couple minutes later, they're at 10 walks. Like he's just comprehending how many batters they've walked. He was not a happy camper. And then to top things all off, my house is actually in Pennsylvania. I live outside of Philly, so it's a journey, but it's like a 2-hour journey. My dad decided to make it a 4-hour journey home because he decided he's from New Jersey originally. He knows the way type of thing to take us through Staten Island in rush hour traffic. I said, Dad, why did you go through Staten Island? We live nowhere. We're going south. I live north. What are we doing?
Wait, what? Sometimes it's okay. There's a friend. You needed Waze. You needed a friend and you needed Waze in that
the
situation.
family walked in the driveway at 9 p.m. from a 1 o'clock game. So I just morale was low. Anyway.
Wait, that's actually hilarious. I could totally envision your dad like, I got this.
No, he didn't
and
got
hours later, he didn't have it.
Oh,
we love Ashley's
We were
dad,
going to
though.
go to dinner. We were going to the whole thing, miss dinner. It was, anyway.
Yeah, so that was drama. Also some drama on the field. You had Austin Adams doing the OMG taunt celly. And then Lindor countering after hitting his 100th home run as a New York Met, doing that little OMG celly towards the bench in the 9-1 win. So I think he got him back. I'd say he won in that little drama debate.
Yeah, I agree. That was, first of all, Autumn, like you play, or Adams, Austin Adams. I can't really talk today, sorry. You played for the A's. The Mets traded you away at the beginning of the season, and now you're on the IL with right elbow tightness. So, karma got Austin Adams there, but Austin Adams, I really don't want to hear it. The Mets got rid of you. Also,
be for real.
Yeah, let's be for real. I just hadn't been to Citi Field in years. I know you have. Wonderful
In
experience.
years?
I hadn't been since like 2019 because of COVID,
Really?
and I just hadn't made it there. Made it to other games, but not Citi Fields. Wonderful. It was my first time as a legit adult, I feel like, who could drink and the whole wonderful time there.
I don't say this as a Mets fan. It is one of the nicest ballparks, I think, to exist.
I think top 10. I've been to all the traditionalists at this point. So Camden Yards, Fenway. I think Citi Field is top 10 for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe 8th, 9th, 10th in baseball.
Sure.
I think that's where Citi Field falls. Tell me what you think.
Yeah, drop that in the comments. I don't know if I speak for both of us in saying PNC Park is the best. True or not true?
True.
True.
I
Okay.
rate it above all the old historical ones. I just love PNC Park.
It just is. Let us know what you think. Beyond that, though, yes, so things didn't go exactly the way that we wanted to against the A's, but they are heating up again. The bats are alive. There was a minute, maybe a few days ago, where everybody was kind of hitting that, Mets Twitter gets to that, the season's over if we don't win the next game point. And I do feel like since that point, the Mets have come through. There was a couple of lineup switches. There was a few people who have really been heating up to the point where you feel like, hey, the season is not done and we are still on the right track.
Yeah, it's not over. At the same time, I kind of think it's now or never for the Mets. That might sound dramatic, but I think with the schedule they have coming up, with the the lineup switches and whatnot recently, I think it's now or never. So Lindor's been hitting leadoff since Carlos Mendoza made that switch in the spring. It's gone wonderfully. That was a great decision. But recently, he's moved Vientos to second and Nimmo to third, and it's really been working. I really like the three of them at the top of that order.
Not to mention, you also have Nimmo, who left Sunday's game after appearing to tweak something in his at-bat in the 7th inning. They said that his throwing shoulder is pretty sore right now. He's getting an MRI, so we'll see what the result of that is. But beyond that, you have Vientos, who, although he didn't, you mentioned it, have a great last at-bat today, and I hated the last pitch he swung on.
The swing. I was like,
awful.
What was that?
Awful. But he has been scorching. In his last 7 games, his batting average is .348. He has 2 home runs, 5 RBIs. Time and time again, I don't know what to do with Brett Baty, and we'll talk about it because he's also on a heater. We can't jump ahead. But Vientos, I mean, it's like, what do you do? Because he always is consistently proving himself.
Yeah, Vientos, I'm really excited to do, like, at the end of the season, like, give out some awards, who's our, like, season MVPs, whatever.
An awards episode.
Yeah, we should do an awards episode.
Love that.
Vientos has been the biggest, best surprise of the Mets summer. I think it's not even a question. He's really come into his own. He's been fantastic. Nimmo, on the other hand, a little worried about that injury. I really hope it's nothing serious. He's getting that MRI tomorrow, Monday, so hopefully he can avoid the IL because I think the Mets are at their best when Nimmo is playing his best. I think the Mets' recent slump on the West Coast trip coincided with a Nimmo slump. Obviously, you need Lindor to be hot, but Lindor kind of always seems to figure it out. So when Lindor is hitting, you need Nimmo in there.
I feel like Lindor has been hot for a decade.
Oh,
I love him. Last but not least, you have Sevy back to his old self, a beauty of a complete game shutout on Saturday night. It was beautiful. It was beautiful to watch. 16 swings and misses, 8 strikeouts, 0 earned runs, and his velocity topped out at 98.6 miles per hour. Beyond all of that, the scream at the end of the game.
That was a roar. That was like a lion's, like...
Literally. Let it rip, dude.
Yeah.
You earned it.
Yeah. No, I was so happy to see that. I was surprised when I was watching that Mendoza let him go out there for the 9th. I was really shocked because I think he was at almost 100 pitches. Kind of thought there was no way he was coming in for the 9th. Came in. I was thrilled to see that. Sometimes you just got to feel a moment. We've talked about that so much with Mendoza. It was his moment to finish that game, get the complete game shutout, something that a Met hasn't done since 2021, which is really crazy. I mean, like, it wasn't a no-hitter, right?
I know.
He just a complete game shutout. Not in 3 years. It's crazy. But I thought an interesting tidbit today was Lindor was actually the one who went to Sevy and said, you got to go convince Mendoza because Lindor is just the catalyst of this team. If this team's a car, Lindor's the engine, and you can't run the car without the engine.
Love that.
Thanks.
But you're right. It's like I feel like once a week I'm hearing something about Lindor that is making me think this guy is captain material. Like he is the I know, girl, how you feel. And you know what? Credit to Mendoza too, because no one's saying that he's done everything right the entire season.
No.
But what you said about him feeling a moment, his ability to know and understand what is happening in the moment and what the right thing to do is through the roof.
Yeah.
I mean, the crowd was just roaring when they decided to leave him in, and I thought he earned it, and I think everybody would have felt disappointed had they have pulled him out. If he felt good, Lindor encouraged him, Mendoza encouraged him, and he did it. On the Lindor note,
This is my favorite topic.
Ashley wrote here that she believes he has officially launched his little MVP campaign.
Yeah, I don't think there's a doubt. I mean, I think it kind of depends how far the Mets go, right? If the Mets fall short of the playoffs, you have a harder argument for that. If the Mets make a playoffs, and especially, I know they don't really take the playoffs into consideration with those awards, but if the Mets go on a run, Lindor's got to be in that conversation. Every time I hear my girl come on the TV when he's walking up to bat, it's like that. What's that meme that's like my body being risen up into the clouds? Like,
I know what you're talking
about. You
about.
could literally wake me out of a coma by playing My Girl.
Yep.
Also, another question I thought of this week, why is My Girl the only walk-up song you really hear when you're watching on the TV? Like, that's odd. You don't really hear anyone else's walk-up songs in the background. Maybe they just pump it up a little extra. I don't know.
Can't say I've ever noticed that.
Yeah, it's great, though. He leads the NL in wins above replacement now. He's having a great year after he recovered from the April-May little slump he was in. I mean, I asked my dad this week when we were at the game, we were watching, like, you got to put a C on that man's chest. I would if I was the Mets. I don't see, he signed for another like 5-6 years. He is the guy. He is not only the guy on the field, the guy off the field. I think Lindor should be the captain.
And like, what could it hurt? And here's another question, just to double down on it. What else could he possibly do to earn it that he hasn't already done?
Right. MVP.
And you know what else? You wrote this down, but I'm actually going to shout this out. Like, hello, James Buckley.
Hi.
You there? Has there ever been a player who was not an all-star but won MVP?
For real?
I mean, it is a legitimate question.
Yeah, it is.
And we want to know the answer to it. So if you know James Buckley, there hasn't been one thing that we've asked you that you haven't been able to find out so far. So keep us posted. And we'll see what happens with him. But he's been doing a great job. MVP or not, I'll tell you what. He's MVD. He's the most valuable dad. There's not one doubt about it.
Listen, there's a presidential election going on this fall, but more importantly, there's a Francisco Lindor campaign. All right, so but also
we stand behind Francisco Lindor.
Yeah.
As far as checking in on some of the deadline acquisitions, we had our eyes on Paul Blackburn. He had that clunker against the A's, which, mind you, everybody keep this in mind. It was his former team, and that carried a lot of weight, clearly, because since then it's been a totally different story for him. Sunday's start makes it 3 or 4 starts where he's gone 6 innings and given up just 1 run. He's been impressive. He's done what we needed him to do.
Yeah, aside from that A's game, Paul Blackburn has done what we needed him to do, put the Mets in a position to win ball games. They don't always. They didn't today, Sunday. I think what's really interesting with pitchers, especially when they get traded at the deadline, reminds me a little bit of football, right? You get traded, you know the playbook. So pitchers, you get traded, your former team's going to know you a little bit better than everyone else. Blackburn has the clunker against the A's. Brazoban has not been good against anyone, but really against the Marlins either. His former team, the guys have a better read on you. I mean, at the end of the day, you're throwing to a guy, a catcher on that team who knows your signs, who knows your what you're about, and so does everyone in the lineup. So I just think that's interesting that they tend to do a little worse.
Yeah, don't underestimate how well his former teammates know him.
Yeah.
Not to mention, it's just a weird dynamic.
Right.
Like, think about the fact that you need to, again, pitch against your former teammates. That's a lot going on mentally, and we've talked about this enough to know, and we are both full believers in the fact that so much of pitching is a mental game.
Totally.
And I think that played a part in it. You also have Huascar Brazoban with the Mets, 7 games played. Right now he has 0 wins, 1 loss, 5.63 ERA. He's struggling.
Yeah, he has not been good. He was kind of the guy at the deadline that everybody, I think, was the most excited about in terms of these relievers that we brought in.
Yeah.
The middle innings, he hasn't been good. I hope he turns it around. They need someone I feel like every day, Carlos Mendoza is fighting this battle. The starter comes out in like the 6th, and then he's got 3-4 innings, and he's got to throw Reed Garrett at the problem, Maton at the problem, Brazoban at the problem. It's like he's just throwing darts at a board. He's seeing who has it today, who doesn't have it today, who can't get a pitch over the plate, which sometimes is Brazoban.
Yes.
So I don't envy Carlos Mendoza from the 6th, 7th inning onward. I really don't.
I know, it's funny because I do feel like the conversation has come up quite frequently about his bullpen management.
Yeah.
But my God, look at what he's dealing with. How would you know who you should be putting out there on any given day?
It's because who knows who has it on any day. Carlos Mendoza is rich in a sense of he's the manager of the Mets, who are one of the richest teams in baseball, but he's poor in the sense of the bullpen.
Yeah, there's not one doubt about it. You also have Winker, who we've had our eyes on. He has 14 hits, 4 runs in 48 at-bats, and he's slashing 292, 320, 333, 653 OPS. I have liked what I've seen so far, and I said this once, I think, a few episodes ago, but out of all of the guys who really came in, I felt like Winker really gelled the most. He really, like, as far as a culture fit, to me, I think that checks out.
Yeah, I think Winker's had some good hits and some good spots. I don't think he's wowed me, but he's, again, brought what they needed him to bring to this team. Another bat in the lineup. Marte's also back. We didn't mention that. He was just reinstated off of the IL. Ben Gamel was designated for assignment. So getting some of those bat depth pieces. Hopefully they don't lose Nimmo. But yeah, I've liked what Winker's brought so far. Wouldn't mind if he picked it up a tad bit, but he's been good enough. But here we go, man. This is the stretch where they welcome the Orioles to town for 3 games before they end the homestand. Then they've got 4 at the Padres and 4 at the Diamondbacks. I believe that in the next, 10 games, we are really going to have a picture of how this Mets season is going to shake out. Now, I know anything can happen in September, but those 4 against the Padres and those 3 against the Diamondbacks are really going to solidify Is it going to be the Braves that this team has to get past? Is it going to be, I mean, they're 6 back in the division. That's not, insurmountable in a month and a half. Or are they going to be able to overtake the Padres or Diamondbacks for one of those first or second wildcard spots? I don't know, but I think we're going to know come next week.
Here's a question for you and anyone else who's listening. You have 3-4-3 in this 10-game stretch, 3 series. What's a record you'd be happy with? And you can break that down by team, but I just think why not talk about it since we're ahead of it anyway?
All right, I think the Orioles are a very good team. I would like to take 2 of 3 against the Orioles. I'd like to win that series because you're at home, and then you're hitting the road for the 2 that matter more in the Padres and the Diamondbacks. So I'd like to start off on a high note, 2 of 3 against the Orioles. Padres and Diamondbacks, I think those 7 games, you got to come out of there with a winning record. If you come out of there 3-4, if you come out of there, 2-5, you really got problems. I think Padres, Diamondbacks, I don't know, man. I'm scared.
Winning record. I mean,
what I want to happen and what will happen are 2 different things, but I think a winning record in this 10 games is all you can really hope for.
Yeah, ditto. All right, we'll keep on it. Final thoughts on the Mets in general before we move on to our Syracuse Mets and Brett Baty.
It's now or never. I've said that a lot of times throughout this episode, but I really believe with that upcoming stretch, with kind of, all right, is Nimmo hurt? Are the starters going to be able to, is the lineup going to be able to be hot again? I think it's now or never. I think this Mets team, whatever the outcome of this season is going to be in terms of the wild card, the playoffs, where we're going, we're going to know by September 1st.
And let's be honest. I feel like there have been games and stretches throughout the entire season where it's felt like this is going to determine how the rest of the season goes. But when we say it's now or never this time around, I think we mean it more than we ever have before. Yeah. And I think a lot of the people who are watching and listening would agree with that. You know what it feels like at this point in my mind? I'm like, we didn't come this far just to make it this far.
I agree.
Please don't tell me that at the end of all of this, it's going to be the Padres, the D-backs, and the Braves. I don't want to hear it, and I don't want to see it. Not the Braves.
Not the Braves. Please, God. No, I'm a little hesitant just because of, like I said, how things have gone this week. A few games here and there that I'm like, oh, those could be the 1-2 games that leave you out of that. I don't know if the Mets have it this year. I really don't. I'm a little more hesitant than I would have been even a month ago, but we're going to find out. And like you said, I mean, now's the time to prove it. We've been saying it all year, but now it's August. It's almost September. We are going to know some things about whether or not this team has it. Even if they do, come out of those 10 games like a disastrous 3-7 or 4-6, they don't have a winning record. They do still have 7 left against the Phillies in September, and they have a series left against the Braves. So it's not like all hope is lost if things don't go well. It's more so just like your really only 2 avenues are that third wild card or the division, which seems like it'd be hard to do.
And why put yourself in a hole and put more pressure on if you don't have to?
Right.
That's the whole point. Meantime, intern Dan also has some thoughts on the bullpen, so we're going to let you guys hear his thoughts right now.
What's up, Mets fans? Intern Dan here, and I know what you're thinking. Dan, where'd you get such a cool hat from? Well, I had the opportunity over on Friday to attend Syracuse University Alumni Night at CITI FIELD, where not only did the Mets get a big win over the Marlins, but Otto the Orange threw out the first pitch, and it was just an absolutely amazing experience as both a Met fan and as a Syracuse University student. This was my World Series. So, I bet you guys wish you had a hat like this. But I'm here today to talk about one thing that's really been on my mind, and that is the usage of Jose Butto. After starting some games earlier this season and suffering a right shoulder impingement, David Stearns made the decision to move Jose Butto to the bullpen. The Met bullpen had been struggling all season, and the team was falling out of control. But you know what? The Jose Butto move to the bullpen turned out to be a great one. Since then, Jose Butto has a sub-1 ERA since joining the bullpen and leads the major leagues in whiff percentage. So, a decision that has been wise, but there has been one caveat that I just don't understand. And that is the way that Carlos Mendoza has been using Butto. Since August 1st, Jose Butto has only appeared in 4 games. In those games, he has only thrown 2 innings in each one. Why? I mean, you have the starter who can come in. He's been moved to the bullpen. He's shown he's been your best option, especially in these big scenarios in must-win games down the stretch. And they just don't use him. They keep using him in mop-up when they don't need him, and they're winning games. It's just been really frustrating to see. Now, I will say, I've been very critical of Carlos Mendoza's bullpen usage in his first season as manager, especially with Jake Diekman on the roster earlier in the season. But this just makes no sense. Stop trotting out Adam Ottavino. Stop trotting out Reed Garrett in these big spots that keep costing you games, and go with the guys that you know can get you outs. End of story. When you are in a scenario like you are right now, when you need to win games, this just can't be happening. So I'm intrigued to see what you guys think on this one, but at the end of the day, there's 40 games left in the season. The Mets are 2 games out. They need to get good bullpen pitching, and the only guy who's been giving it to them recently is Jose Butto. So hopefully the Mets can figure it out. Hopefully Butto gets used in more high-leverage positions, but that's my take. I want to hear your guys' thoughts.
On to the Syracuse Mets. I'm sure this is not coming as a surprise to anyone, but Brett Baty just continues to let it rip. He is smoking the ball.
Yeah.
He has had 5 home runs in his last 9 games. 3 of them were 400-plus feet. What do we do with this guy?
I don't know. I think I've made a decision on the Brett Baty thing. Obviously, the roster expands in September to James Buckley explained to us very nicely, no more 40-man, so it's like a 28-man situation. They bring up kind of 2 guys, 3 guys. If Brett Baty is not one of those guys, I think that speaks to the organization's kind of done with him. Now, I think he will be one of those guys. I think you bring him up for depth in the lineup, depth in the infield. But if he's not, might be over for Brett Baty with the Mets. But I think he will be. He's been raking. He's been the bat that you would call up from AAA Syracuse, aside from maybe Luke Ritter. But I don't know what they're going to do with Luke Ritter. They never seem interested in him.
I know. I agree with that. Yeah. Listen, it's tough to say, but it's a hard situation because Brett Baty strikes me as the kind of guy where the second you let him loose is the second he explodes.
Oh, 100%.
You know it's true.
You're so right.
So I want to hold on to him. In my heart, I feel like we should. But we'll see what decision the Mets make. You also have Sproat, who was ejected from his second AAA start for arguing a play at the plate. And David Stearns talked about him a little bit, ultimately just saying he needs more experience. They want to make sure he dominates at the level that he's at before they bring him up. No complaints there.
Yeah, I think, like I'm saying, when the roster expands, they're going to need a bat. I would bet money that it's Baty. They're going to need an arm. I don't know if Sproat's that guy yet. He's really kind of just gotten up there. I honestly would put my money on the fact he's not that guy right now. I think they're going to look towards more of a Mike Vassal's been pitching well lately, a Dom Hamill.
I'd love to see that.
I would love for it to be Mike Vassal,
right?
just because we have bias towards him because he was
know.
on our show.
I know.
But they're going to need a bat and they're going to need an arm from AAA. And so I don't think the arm's going to be Sproat. I think the bat will be Baty. But another question for Baty is, if Baty is the bat and he's up there in September and all of a sudden he goes ice cold again, can't buy a hit, then what do you do? I mean, he's had a lot of chances here.
And that has been the problem. It's almost like I feel for someone like Baty.
Yeah.
Because clearly from all the times that he gets shipped back to Syracuse, you see the potential he has.
You do.
You know he can do it. But understanding that, seeing him do it at the AAA level, and then making that transition to the big leagues is a totally different story.
Yeah.
You can't just say it. You have to do it when it really matters. And so far, he hasn't proven that, which is why they stuck with Vientos. But we'll see. And we're always rooting for him. Final thoughts on anything?
Final thoughts? It's also now or never for Brett Baty, in my opinion. Now or never is the title of this episode. Thanks so much for watching.
We didn't have a title coming into it, but I think now we might have found it. All right, guys, you heard it here first. Now or never, it's the title of our episode because we really mean it. And we want to hear from you. As always, what do you think would be a good record to come out with in this 10-game stretch? We will be locked to the TV seeing exactly what goes down. Thanks so much again for watching, and we will see you back here again next Monday.
Bye.